Good morning, viewers. A warm welcome. Sage here, and you're watching 𝐊𝐴𝐿 TV live from Sydney. This is the Global Markets Roundup show, and in today's show we'll be exploring the latest updates from the equity, currency and commodity markets from across the globe. Let us first take a look at the US markets performance from yesterday's closing. The benchmark US indices closed flat on Monday, August 9th, as the global oil prices tumbled amid the rising Delta virus concerns, deterring investors from exploring opportunities in the stock market. The S&P 500 fell 0.09% and the Dow Jones declined 0.30%. The Nasdaq Composite rose 0.16% and the small cap Russell 2000 was down 0.58%. Investors pulled back from economically sensitive stocks as declining oil prices created unease over the recovery outlook of the world's biggest economy. And the spread of the Delta virus has added to their worries. The robust labour data on new job openings in June also failed to motivate them. US job openings rose by 590,000 to 10.1 million, while hirings increased from 6 million to 6.7 million in June, the Labor Department said on Monday. It shows that despite supply bottlenecks that constrained new recruitments, the US labour market continues to improve. The global oil prices dipped after data showed that China, one of the world's leading oil importers, noticeably cut its daily crude imports in July compared to the previous month. And the Brent oil futures ticked down 2.79%, while WTI crude futures slipped 3.21%. The financial sector provided the most significant boost to the S&P 500 on Monday, and the communication and consumer discretionary stocks saw small gains, while energy stocks trailed. 6 of the 11 segments of the index stayed in the negative territory in Monday's session, and of the 443 S&P 500 companies that have reported the quarterly earnings so far, around 87% of them beat the market expectations. So now analysts expect about a 93% jump in quarterly profit of the index this season, the Refinitiv data showed. Now let's look at the newsmakers, beginning with asset management company Brookfield Asset Management said on Monday that its reinsurance business would acquire the financial services company American National Group for about $5.1 billion in an all-cash deal. And following the announcement, shares of American National surged 8.30%, while Brookfield stock rose by 0.52% in the intraday trading. Shares of the meatpacking company Tyson Foods also jumped 8.48% after it raised its revenue estimate for the fiscal year 2021, and sales rose to $12.48 billion, up from $10.02 billion in the year-on-year period in the quarter ended July 3rd. It raised the revenue outlook to be between $46 to $47 billion from the earlier $44 to $46 billion range. Sports betting operator DraftKings said it would buy the Golden Nugget Online Gaming for $1.56 billion. Golden Nugget Online Gaming stock rose 51.87% and DraftKings stock rose 1.71%. On the other hand, poultry producer Sanderson Farms has agreed to its purchase by private firms Cargill and Continental Grain for $4.5 billion. Sanderson Farms stock jumped 7.41% after the news. So this is how the US market performed. It is time for a short break, but after the break we'll look at the stock markets in the European and the Asian sectors. So stay tuned to 𝐊𝐿 TV.
Boarding pass, please. Hi, I'm Holly Shields and I'll be your host for 𝐊𝐿 TV's news show Travel Insights. Tune in to get the latest developments in the travel and tourism space, from updates on restrictions to travel guides to info about recreation and outdoor activities, or tour guides to the financials of the sector. Though the travel industry has taken a hit from the pandemic, there is still potential left for a revival on the back of economic upturn and COVID-safe travel measures. So if you want to know where the travel and tourism space is heading, dust off your passport, pack your bags, and watch Travel Insights every Thursday exclusively on 𝐊𝐿 TV. I'll see you there.
Welcome back, viewers. Sage here. You're watching 𝐊𝐶𝐞 TV live from Sydney. This is the Global Markets Roundup show. Let's now look at the European and Asian share markets performance. Global shares treaded water on Monday as sharp falls in gold and oil prices and concerns over the spread of the coronavirus Delta variant dented the sentiments. MSCI's gauge of stocks across the globe gained 0.05%, and the European stocks reached a record high after healthcare, utilities and technology gains outweighed declines triggered by a fall in the commodity prices earlier on Monday. And the Pan-European Stock 600 index rose 0.2% to a closing high, powered by rises in the defensive sectors of utilities index and the healthcare sector. Let us now look at the Asian markets, beginning with China. Chinese stocks rose on Monday with strong rebound in the blue chip stocks, offsetting losses in the highly valued tech shares as signs of slowing economic growth fanned hopes of fresh policy easing. And the blue chip CSI 300 index rose 1.3%, while the Shanghai Composite Index rose 1%. South Korean shares fell on Monday as investors wagered that upbeat US jobs data would move the Federal Reserve closer to pulling back stimulus. And the benchmark KOSPI fell 0.30%. Despite a poor start to the week on Wall Street, the Australian share market is on a positive side on Tuesday as the domestic corporate earnings season gathered momentum. On Monday, the benchmark index closed flat. And the bond yield and dollar US Treasury yield surged on Monday on strong jobs data, and the benchmark 10-year notes last fell 11/32 in price to yield 1.3254%. from 1.288% late on Friday. And the US dollar index remained primarily unchanged on Monday as market analysed how rising coronavirus cases may impact the economic outlook, and the US dollar index was last up 0.07%. Extending last week's losses, the crude oil prices declined over 4% on the rising US dollar and expectations that surging coronavirus cases could hurt the global recovery in fuel demand, and the energy stocks such as Woodside Petroleum and Santos could be under the pressure on Tuesday. Gold prices declined to over a 4-month low as strong US labour data boosted expectations for an early tapering, and the spot gold fell 1.9% and the US gold futures settled 2.1% down. ASX listed gold stocks such as Northern Star Resources and Newcrest Mining could trade lower on Tuesday. And the weakening Chinese demand and improved supply hit the prospects of iron ore as well. The most traded iron ore for January 2022 delivery on China's Dalian Commodity Exchange closed 4.4% lower, and the benchmark copper on the London Metal Exchange was down 1%. Lastly, the popular digital currency Bitcoin hit a 3-month high on Monday. It surpassed the $46,000 US barrier as gold fell and Bitcoin last rose 5.46%. Thanks for joining us, viewers. That's all for now. Stay tuned with 𝐊𝐶𝐞 TV for more live market updates. We'll be back with more news in the markets, economies and diverse themes and sectors. Sage signing off.